We'd like to introduce Terry now to share a bit more about the story of watermelons.
G'day everyone. As you can see right behind me, this is a paddock that we're about to plant tomorrow. So we'll put out little plants that are about this high and they'll come into maturity, so they'll be on your shelves everywhere by probably the first week of your school holidays all around Australia. So we have a pretty good slideshow that we've got coming up that I'll be able to go through and explain the whole process of watermelons, what we have to do, how far ahead we plant, and how it all comes around and ends up on your shelves, in your kitchens and in your lunchboxes. So pretty self-explanatory. I'm in Chinchilla in Queensland in Australia. We've got a couple that are logging on from overseas as well, so hi to you guys. So we've got quite a few different types of melons. So, of course, the watermelon that the big experiment was about. We have the honeydew, we have a rock melon or cantaloupe, and we also have a candy melon. But on top of that, there's also a heap of other different types of melons around. So here's a pretty good map indicative of exactly where in Australia melons are currently grown. There's a few more little spots on there that are missing, but this is where the vast majority comes from. Again, maps that shows at what month of what year watermelons come from. And we always have a saying with watermelons and other melons that it's always summer somewhere in Australia. So all the melons that we are eating in Australia are grown here within our own country. So melons, I think we're all well among the facts that fruits and vegetables are part of a really well-balanced diet, are very good for you. But there is just one little thing missing off there, and that's actually how delicious watermelons are for the ones that aren't blown up by rubber bands. This photo is actually my great-grandfather and my grandfather planting watermelons in Queensland here, but instead of tractors, back then they had teams of bullocks that would pull a plough, and they'd go through them and drop the seeds in perfectly and wait for them to grow and send them off to the local markets. So my family's been doing this for a pretty long time. This photo was taken sometime before 1920. So here's my story. The photo right over on the side, that's me as around a 4 or 5 year old. I can't quite remember that far back. They were very much the watermelons that we were growing back then. The middle photo is myself and my daughter. She's now 12 years old, and we're out and we're looking for insect damage on the big leaves that you can see the same daughter holding up there in front of you. So we're very much a family-focused business. We've been passed down from generation to generation, and I'm hoping my daughters will take it on the next. This is where I'm from in relation to Brisbane. And I don't know, Dr. Rob, we might have to figure out once we've got enough data how many rubber bands we're going to need to crack that big watermelon that's just been put up in Chinchilla. So these are the different stages of plant growth. So the way we start off in Australia usually is we have the seeds that are grown by a nursery. They germinate, they're sent out, we plant them. The vines grow, the flowers form, the bees do their magic, then the fruit will start to form. This is where it gets really complicated for us as growers to make sure that the melons have the perfect amount of water, the perfect amount of fertiliser, so that they can grow into the nice, big, beautiful fruit. Once they've grown and they've hit maturity, anywhere from 70 to 110 days from transplanting, they're picked, they're checked for quality, checked for ripeness, then they're packed up, shipped off in some nice big cardboard boxes to your local store, where then you can turn around and eat them. So this here is actually from when I went to a research farm over in California in the States. This is actually experimental varieties, so we're always working with seed companies from all around the world on what's going to be the next best melon for the consumers, the customers to go and buy. So in this stage, you can see all those little black things floating in the water. The workers go through and they scoop the seed out. They put it in the water. All of the seeds will float around in the water. They're able to skim all that off and collect them, and then we're able to plant those seeds. Next up, we have a very short video of the same process. So hopefully you'll be able to see there the water that's turning and lots of water jets going through to clean the seed of any bits of the fruit that might be left on there. It's very, very important that we have really strict biosecurity protocols. There are some diseases that can be carried over. So when our seed companies that we work with, when they're doing this seed, there's an amazing amount of science that goes in behind that for testing the seed, make sure they're clean and there's none of that disease that could be from another country and brought into Australia. It's very, very important and a very big part of what we do here. So preparing the fields, we actually on our farm, we have an 8-year plan. So we'll put all of our melon paddocks back into grass for 5 years. They'll grow, they'll build up the organic matter, then we'll put watermelons in, then we'll have a break. This year is the break, and this is a crop of oats. You can see it out in front of the tractor, and then you can see it behind it, where those oats are ploughed into the ground as a green manure. This is great for our soil health and all the microbiology that lives in there, because the more carbon that we have in our soil, that means the better the microbial activity is in the soil, the better and healthier the soil is, and also more carbon that we can pull out of the atmosphere and put it into our soil isn't just good for the environment, but also helps our soils hold more water and be more efficient with what we're doing. You can see here some things with machinery don't go that well. We've come a long way from a team of bullocks pulling a plough, but unfortunately there are always some little hiccups along the way. This was actually when we were trying to save our watermelon crops after the devastating floods that hit Queensland in 2011. This is a video of how we lay down our mulch and irrigation. This is very, very important for us to be able to grow the best quality produce we can and having the most efficient way that we can do things. Those two black lines you can see are actually little hoses with little tiny holes in there that will put the water and the fertiliser right where the roots of the plant are and exactly where it needs to be. The film you can see over the top, the mulch, that actually stops weeds coming in and competing for that water and fertiliser, and not just means less weeding work from us, but it also means less other inputs we have to put into the soil for water and fertiliser, and then labour to go through and get the weeds out from between the melons. So this is a very important step and really goes towards having the most amount of melons from what we put in at the end of the season. So planting seedlings, you can see here, this is again my 12-year-old daughter and my wife planting. The video is not that good, but you can see all the little plants there. And as we go along, there's a wheel with a little spike on there. It punches a hole in the top of the plastic, injects some water and a special fertiliser mix to help those little watermelon plants, as soon as they get planted, really take off and grow as fast as they can. It's actually quite an interesting thing with seedless watermelons. We don't just have the seedless plants, but we also have big seeded watermelons because we still need to have that little bit of viable male pollen. So as we go along, the plants have all got a nice even spacing, so they're exactly spread out. They're able to get the perfect amount of water and fertiliser they need because of that spacing. And we're able to go through and do tests of the leaves of these plants when they get a bit bigger to find out exactly what they have too much of, what they don't have enough of, and then we're able to fine-tune that to make sure that we can get the best melon crop we can. Okay, so after they've been planted, the most important things that we can have for watermelons, a lot of people might think that because they're called watermelons, they use a lot of water, but they're actually a desert plant. So the vines like really nice free draining soil. They like a lot of sun, and that's why they grow really well in a lot of parts of Australia. As they go through that really nice free draining soil, they get their roots right down, and then they start taking off like this here. That photo on your left, those plants are probably only 2.5 weeks old from when they were little tiny plants this high, and with the right amount of water, sun and fertiliser, they're able to grow pretty quickly. You can see right here, they're setting up the tendrils, we call them. They're reaching right up into the sky to try and get as much sun as they can. And this one here is actually just about to start setting flower. So flowers and beads, they're very, very important for us and watermelon growers. As I said before, we actually need to still have normal seeded watermelons out in the paddock for the male part of the pollen that the bees will pick up and then take to the small flower of the seedless fruit to be able to make sure that we can have a nice fruit that forms. This one here is actually a photo, and you can see some tiny, tiny little insects in there. They're called thrips, and they can actually do some damage to the plants. So we'll go through and we'll release some beneficial insects that will then go through and take out those little thrips. There's the small female flower again. This is what we call an opium stage. So you've got the tiny little bit of fruit just up there. And this one here looks like the bee has just pollinated it. So it's closing up. And the interesting part is the flower actually has 3 little separate sections to it. If you go through and if you cut a watermelon, instead of from top to bottom, through the middle, you should be able to see 6 little swirls in there with 3 really defined sections. That's from where that pollination has happened and transferred from the flower into the fruit. So here I am inspecting some fruit. This guy here is probably about 10, 12 days away from picking. They grow pretty quick. From when they're planted through to picking, it can be 70 to 110 days. But this guy would have been a tiny little flower, tiny little opium fruit about this big, about 5 weeks before that. So they grow pretty quickly under the right conditions. We have some interesting pests that come through at times. This crop's been finished picking, and we always have interesting native wildlife. I think a few of our overseas viewers at the moment might find this a little bit interesting, with some emus that were actually attacking my drone as I was trying to get them out of the paddocks. You can see bits of the fruit that was still left on the ground that they just weren't quite ripe enough to be able to send away to the markets. The next stage we have at picking is quality testing, where the farmers will go through and will check the fruit for its size, its sugar content, how firm the fruit is, make sure that there's nothing wrong with the internals, and get the sweetest and best tasting product that we can out to the customers. Here we are picking. This is a pretty common way of harvesting the fruit. Back in the old days, we used to go through and pick them the day before, put them into long rows, and then throw them straight into the back of trucks that would then take them away to the markets. We're a bit smarter now, and it's a bit easier. We have these large cardboard bins. The fruit is packed according to their size into each bin. These guys are down on the ground working hard, picking the fruit, looking to see which ones are nice and ripe, putting them on a conveyor belt. They then go across that conveyor belt up onto the trailer, and then that's where more staff will check them for quality and pack them according to size and even varieties as well. So you can see that these melons here are looking a bit different to the one in the last photos. There's so many different varieties of watermelons grown around the world. These are 2 seedless varieties. Inside, you wouldn't be able to tell them apart, but just different varieties might look a bit different, and they grow better in some areas at some time of year compared to other areas in the other time of year. So farmers are very good at trying to choose the best variety they can ahead of the weather conditions that they're going to have. Now, I'll just ask a bit of a question, and someone can jump on Q&A if they want. How many watermelons do they think are in each bin, and how heavy they think each one of those watermelons are? I'll give you a bit of a hint. Those bins carry 300 kilos worth of melons in each one. So these bins are carried through. You can see that's my youngest daughter there. She's now 5. These bins go through, and like I said, they're 300 kilograms. They're taken back into the sheds. They're checked on some electronic scales to be perfect amount of weight, perfect amount of size. One more check to make sure that all the melons are top quality. Then these bins are stacked 3 high and shipped off. A lot of other kids around Australia and around the world on summer holidays go and have a lot of fun and go travelling around. That's our busiest time here in Chinchilla. So our kids actually come and they help on the farm in every way they can. Little Daisy here is actually a very good taste tester and making sure that they're good melons. You can see there on the back of the truck, the bins are 300 kilos and stacked 3 high. And then they're shipped off to our major supermarkets, to smaller shops, and to our central marketing systems that are based all around Australia, where customers can come and buy them. And then they end up on your shelf in your supermarket, cut up and prepared and ready to buy for you guys to take home and enjoy, like my daughter is just there. Or if you don't want to eat them, you can always blow them up with rubber bands. So for more information, please head to our melonsaustralia.org.au website. We also have a great Facebook page, and I'll be monitoring that with Beth. So if anyone has any more questions that we don't cover in the Q&A, I'd be more than happy to try and answer them as best I can.